Okay, recording.
It's Thanksgiving in Canada. Is that right?
Yep.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Terry Hidebrandt, and today we'll be talking about marketing coaching supervision in the Americas. And just a little bit about, oh, can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay, great. Just a little bit about why I'm interested in this. So I've been coaching and supervising for about 2 years, and this topic is really near and dear to my heart. I first was introduced to supervision through Damien Goldvarg at a conference probably 4 or 5 years ago, and signed up for his cohort 2 of training program of coaching supervision certification, and have since been quite an advocate. And one of the things we have done is created a coaching supervision marketing mastermind, and Jeff Nally and I co-created that program, and we're going to be talking about coaching supervision and what we've learned in terms of marketing it, and also a study that was done last year. And then we'll do some small group breakouts to hear from everyone on the call what you have found has been helpful in marketing and gaining greater awareness of supervision, especially in the Americas, but of course, all of our European colleagues, we'd like to hear your experiences as well on the call today. And just a little bit of history, Jeff and I, and Jeff's on the call, so Jeff, feel free to jump in and as well if you have any additional thoughts. And we started in early 2018, shortly after graduating from Damien's program together. And about half of the folks on the call today have been a part of this mastermind group, so we have a good representation of people on the call today who are members. And the goal is, again, to promote the adoption of coaching supervision, specifically in the Americas. We meet every other month, and if you would like to be on the list to get the recordings and or participate in the live calls, feel free to just email me and I'll add you to the distribution list. And it is open to anyone, whether you're in the Americas or more globally. And a little bit about the study that was done in 2018. 4 of us decided that we wanted to explore what was going on in terms of supervision in a broader way. There had been a couple of good studies done earlier, but most of the data were from Europe. So this study was really the largest global study of its kind. And Kimsey McAnally and Lillian Abrams and Mary Jo Asmussen. Mary Jo's on the call today, so Mary Jo, please feel free to jump in as you would like with any other insights, and myself. And this study is almost ready to be released publicly, but today you'll see a preview of some of the data. We had a total of 1,280 participants, which is the largest study of its kind in the world. And it was the first one that had a strong representation from the United States. Most of the participants were identified as external leadership or executive coaches, about 60%. 263 were either life coaches, wellness coaches, other kind of coaches. We did have 233 certified coach supervisors attend, and 136 internal leadership and executive coaches, and about 76 who were more on the clinician side, but who had also received supervision. They did represent every region in the world, but the largest populations were from North America and the United Kingdom, along with some sampling from many other locations. So we do have all 3 regions: Europe, Africa, APAC, and Americas. Some of the study findings that we found interesting that I thought you would all like to hear about is in this breakdown by region, We see that the largest group, of course, is Europe, with 57% having currently working with an individual coaching supervisor. 24% of those folks have also worked in a group. So we have both group supervision and individual supervision data here. APEC was the next largest, with 38% working with an individual and 15% in a group. And Americas is still lagging behind, with only 20% of the participants from the Americas currently working with a supervisor and 11% in a group. You can see we also asked a few other questions because we believe that some of the data that came from the Americas was conflated with mentor coaching, because we asked, I've had supervision, but only within the context of a training or certification program. So in this case, you could see a lot more people in America said yes, that was the case. There is a challenge in the Americas, and maybe more globally, but certainly in the US, where some of the coach training schools use the word supervision to mean mentor coaching. The way ICF defines it is, listening to recordings and giving people feedback on the core competencies. That's ICF's definition of mentor coaching. However, some programs call that supervision in their training schools. So there's a little bit of a confusion here in the Americas, and this data kind of leads us to that challenge, where we see a lot of folks in the Americas saying that they have received supervision, but it was most likely mentor coaching. There were quite a few folks that have worked with a supervisor in the past and not currently. You could see here about a third in APAC and 26% in the Americas. Interestingly enough, Europe, that was a smaller number, so we can see they're probably sticking with supervision more often than we see in APAC and Americas. And then, of course, 17% of the folks we surveyed in the US had not worked with a supervisor at all, compared to 15% in APAC and 7% in Europe. So clearly Europe is having a great penetration of coaching supervision compared to some of the other regions. We also ask, how often do you meet? Yes.
Did you do any assessment in terms of how many are doing that, getting supervision as part of being an internal coach or part of a coaching contract versus hiring someone on their own?
We didn't actually ask that question, so we don't have that data yet.
That would be interesting, I think.
Yeah, the survey was already, we got a lot of complaints about it being too long.
Okay.
So I know researchers would love to ask, 1,000 questions, but you gotta stop somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
So here we have the frequency of when people were meeting, and you can see monthly is the most common frequency of meeting with a supervisor, and 29% said they do that, especially for group. You could see even more commonly it's a monthly type meeting, but you could see quarterly is also quite popular, and every other month. Occasionally, as needed, you could see that's less popular, but nonetheless, monthly seems to be that sweet spot for most people. And these are some of the topics that people bring to supervision. And this was a predefined list that we created, and we'll show you another open-ended question that we asked. But from the predefined list, currently client-related issues, challenges, and situations are certainly the most popular. So that is certainly what we all have said is the main reason one would work with a supervisor. So we're glad to see that data came out number one. And then, of course, issues, challenges, and situations related to me personally as a coach. So that's also quite popular. Questions about my own skills and competencies was number third. And then developing my practice, which of course is more probably marketing and sales. So a lot of folks are using supervision for that, which most of the supervision schools would say is not what supervision is intended to do. But nonetheless, people are still, using supervisors for that. Emotional reactions, certainly a popular topic as well, along with managing your well-being and ethics. Ethics is quite far down the list, though, compared to some of the others, even though we use ethics as one of the primary goals for supervision. These are some of the things that folks, and when we ask the open-ended question, what was most helpful to you in supervision? Listening, this was the supervisor, paying it close attention and asking powerful questions. So those top two are probably the same thing you might find in coaching that would be useful. But the third is, I think, perhaps more unique to supervision, which is the chance to thoughtfully reflect on their own coaching practice. Certainly that's the main goal of coaching supervision as we understand it. Gaining specific tools and techniques, obtaining specific improvement suggestions for challenges, and recognizing their own current strengths and gaining confidence. So these are the things people are really getting out of supervision as an open-ended question that we asked. A couple other important findings is the benefits of coaching supervision. And again, this was an open-ended, this was a closed-ended question where we asked them specifically, what did you find to be the most beneficial? Working through a client challenge, you could see, was number one. Space for me to gain greater clarity, developing my own coaching skills, and then learning from my supervisor's experience, developing my confidence in coaching, and working through a personal challenge. So some of the same themes showing up in a couple different questions. The value of supervision was another question we asked. And this was an open-ended question, so we did qualitative data analysis to see these four big themes. The first being new perspectives, insight, and approaches, opportunity to develop myself, time and space to reflect, along with support I received. So when not prompted with a set of predefined list, this is what people said in an open-ended question. And the last one was, I'm just covered up, reassurance that I felt about my coaching. We also ask about price. I'm sure a lot of people on the call today may be interested in pricing information. So this is for individual supervision, what the respondents felt would be an appropriate fee. So this was not what they actually received, because most of the respondents were not supervisors, and some of them had never received supervision. So we wanted to leave it open-ended enough to get from people's opinion about what they felt would be appropriate fee for supervision. As you could see, the midpoint was $150. So it's probably a lot lower than a lot of folks would suspect would be the price for supervision. But you can see it did vary across the board, from free essentially all the way down to over $500 an hour. And this is US dollars. So we asked people to do that kind of conversion when they answered the question. So broad range, as you might expect, but the midpoint was 150. Here are the fees broken down by region. So you could see there are some differences in the regions, with North America and then the South America and the Caribbean actually coming in the highest. So the average was 204 for North America, and the Central and South America was 214. When you compare that to the United Kingdom being 176, that's, which was our next largest set of population, we could see that we've been able to somehow hold the price a little bit higher in the Americas, which is good news for the Americas at this point. Here is another set of data from the group fees. So if you're doing group supervision, what are you paying per hour? You can see in this case, the data change a little bit, where the Middle East and South America came in the highest, which I thought was interesting, where the United Kingdom was $112 compared to $153 in the Middle East and $190 per hour in the Americas, in the South America and Central America. The North America average was $141. Here are some other raw data that you could see with the number of responses on terms of the whole range of what we saw. Again, North America and Central and South America being the highest in this case, with Europe in Central and Eastern Europe coming at 123. And then when you look at the group data, you can see it's still highest in this case, except for the Middle East, coming at 153 per hour. We also asked people, how did you find your supervisor? Pretty important question for marketing. So what we found is that number one was prior experience. And when we looked at some of the comments, that was because they met their supervisor when they were in coaching training program. So they continued with the people that they met in their coach training program. That was a common thing that happened here. So that prior experience from a training program was a big theme. But you could see other reputation is important here, people knowing you, and then they were more likely to hire people that they have some experience with. That was number one. Also from professional associations such as the ICF or EMCC or AC. Referrals, as usual, we would expect that to be high, with number three, closely followed by word of mouth. The ones that weren't as successful were presentations, webinars, and networking events like at a conference. So all of us that are doing lots of work in presentations and doing webinars, it's not that successful actually. However, they may get to know you at least a little bit, and hopefully that might move into that first category of prior experience. But we could see that as is often the case, knowing someone is the main way that folks choose or at least find a supervisor. I also want to talk about some of the themes that have come up from the mastermind meetings that Jeff and I and many of you on the call have talked about over almost the last 2 years now. And there is, I think, consensus that personal demonstrations of coaching supervision seems to work best in raising awareness in the Americas, and that there's no real substitute from people getting a sense of what supervision is personally by seeing the benefits personally, and doing those sample sessions seem to be really important. We also have developed some pretty powerful techniques, mostly leveraged from the work that Damian Goldvarg's done around using groups like a webinar or even certainly face-to-face, where you could give people a quick taste of supervision. And that has been quite successful in bringing greater awareness. But it is a new enough experience that people need to have a firsthand exposure to it to understand how it works. We also have found that some organizations, whether these be big corporations or other third-party coaching firms, are beginning to supervise their internal coaches. What's interesting about this is that I use the word supervise in quotes, because there's a mix of what we would call real supervision, where the person who is a supervisor has no managerial responsibility for the coaches. That would be an ideal situation, but I'm also seeing these hybrid models showing up, and I'm in an organization right now that has one of these hybrid models where the supervisor is actually also looking at data, like feedback data from the people they're coaching, and providing critical feedback, and in a way that you might as a manager. So they're mixing managing coaches with supervising coaches. And I think this is mainly due to still the confusion over the word supervision. People still think of supervision being some kind of power over or management responsibility for coaches. There's another supervisor I know who is doing a similar kind of model, where the people in his organization are required to report to him, and to meet with them on a regular basis, not only for what we would call supervision, but more classic management. So these kind of hybridized models of accountability are showing up in the Americas, at least. And some of these third-party organizations are designing it that way. Also, some coach training schools are incorporating coaching supervision. Certainly fielding, where I teach, we require group supervision. It's real supervision according to how we think of it. And those students are getting exposure to the power of supervision. We also have seen some early evidence that some executive and leadership coaches are looking for supervisors to gain access to global RFP coaching cohorts. Some of these global firms are requiring that all the coaches that they hire have a supervisor. I actually had an emergency call with someone a few months ago that did not have a supervisor, but to get onto the RFP, they needed to very quickly get some supervision. So he reached out to me through a referral, and I signed him up as a supervisee. But it was mainly because he was forced to, not because he really wanted supervision. And he only met with me once to be able to get on that RFP list. So I think that will become more popular in the future as these global companies become savvy to the power of supervision and the need for it. We still are finding in general that demand for coaching supervision is still very low in the Americas. Most supervisors have very few supervisees, at least from our experience, and it's still not something you can make a living at in the Americas. And I think part of that is due to ICF's current policy. Unlike our European counterparts, EMCC and AC and Apex, which requires supervision to maintain your credential as a coach, ICF does support supervision, and they recently reaffirmed that position by adding a PDF onto their website. Here's the link if you haven't seen it. It was nothing new. It was just reaffirming the previous statements they'd already had on their website, but someone felt like it was useful enough to actually create a PDF that is now downloadable and kind of summarizes the fact that they do support supervision, but certainly don't require it as for any of their credentialing programs. And they see it as an optional, powerful way for continuing professional development. So as a result, as everyone probably knows here, it becomes challenging then to, supervision continues to be a voluntary process in the Americas. So I'd like to stop here for a moment and do some small breakouts and ask the group, what type of marketing are you doing if you are actively seeking supervisees? Some of you may not be, but if you are looking for supervisees, what kind of marketing are you doing? And what have you found that works best to find supervisees? So those are the two questions. And I think we would like to give folks about 10 minutes or so to have this conversation. And then we'll get everybody back and hear what has come up for you in your breakouts. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and moving us to breakouts, Lily, that would be helpful.
So 5 groups of 5, does that sound right?
What could we do? Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay,
That
here we
sounds
go.
about right.
10 minutes, I'll bring you back.
Great, thank you. We are back.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, returning to the room. Give everyone a moment or two to come back live. Excellent. Okay, so let's hear some of the summary. If each group could report back some of the themes that showed up in your group. Who would like to start?
Is everyone back? Yeah.
Martine.
Okay. Yeah. So we had two questions. The first one was, how can we speak about supervision? So we shared a few ideas. One was speaking about reflective space as something specific that makes it different from mentoring. And I shared also a few images, some tribute to Michelle, who's present here. The image of you need to get out of the bed to be able to make the bed. And another one is tribute to Vincent for the ones who know him. And it's wiping the glasses so that we keep the clear view. And another one was voluntary quality control. So that's for the first question, and I will let someone else speak about the second question. Who's in the call and wants to talk about the second question?
Yes.
Oh, Danielle, you're on
Danielle,
mute.
you're talking, but you're talking in the void.
Yeah, you're mute, Danielle.
Okay, it's what do we do? It was the marketing, the second question. And I think we the two of us have talked about the fact that people who already know us, or people who refer us when we are training. It's what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I also said that when I was in my other career, I used to make conferences, and I think doing conferences may be useful because people know us and they come to us after asking for supervision. And personally, I had people I was coaching before, and I changed the role to supervision, and it was very effective. I didn't say that in my group.
Okay.
Is it useful, what I said?
Yes,
Yeah?
thank you.
Okay.
There was one other comment made I thought was interesting, and that the confusion between mentor coaching and supervision sometimes gets in the way. I have seen that myself as well. I've had probably 3 people come to me saying that they wanted supervision, but actually they needed mentor coaching for their ICF credential. But they were confused on what supervision was versus mentor coaching. And so we had to switch over to mentor coaching instead. So let's hear from another group. Anyone else like to share from your group?
So one thing we discussed was whether instead of a sort of one-size-fits-all reflection space, whether things around expertise might actually be more attractive to some coaches. You know, a particular lens that somebody might have, like expertise around team coaching, and also that when people are facing a new situation that's out of pattern and or complexity, that might be another thing that says, here's something that's going to add value.
Great. Any other?
We also talk in our group about doing presentation for local chapters, looking for opportunities to create awareness, and as a result of that, maybe getting some possible clients. But for example, in ours, I have been doing that in Los Angeles, but somebody else also in our group was doing it in her local chapter. So by doing presentations and workshops, that's one way. And I also want to bring, Terry, to your attention what you came up with this idea 2 years ago at the ICF Global Conference with this button that said, ask me about coaching supervision. So having something like that when you go to places can be a good idea. And I was thinking, I don't know if you have any left, Terry, from 2 years ago to bring to Prague. So all of
Oh, you know, I don't, but we could see if we could get some printed up in time. I'll look into it.
Okay, that would be great. So it's about bringing awareness. And as a result of this, we can start the conversation and bring curiosity to people. And then what came up in our group about with Jonathan too is that even sometimes you explain people what is supervision, it takes some time for people to really understand it. because they may listen supervision like control or management. So it takes like, sometimes you need to repeat the message a couple of times till people realize that it's not really about telling people what to do. It's not about management or authority, that is that reflective space. So that requires for all of us to be a little bit patient and don't giving up, keep repeating the message.
I like what Jonathan and Larissa shared as well. Jonathan mentioned we should look for coaches who are experiencing novelty. They are doing something new or different, like coaching a different set of clients or coaching for a different third-party firm. Something that's new might be a really prime opportunity to be a supervisor and for them to use supervision. And Larissa mentioned complexity. Whether the coaches are coaching in group coaching, whether the coaches are doing group coaching or team coaching, or they're leading some kind of complexity, that's another prime area where supervision can really help, and those might be the coaches we should be focused on.
Yeah, if I could just jump in, the idea Jonathan mentioned about you have a specialty, say in team coaching or group coaching. There are certain coaches that I know that are actually hiring supervisors for particular projects that are very high stakes. And it could be, you could call it spot supervision. It could be 3 or 4 sessions because this is a critical senior team that they're working with, and they bring on a supervisor for that. So that's another way that to add value or to talk about it, I think. And to Damien's point, we can't talk about swimming and teach someone how to swim. It's the same way with supervision. They need to experience it to truly understand it, in my view. So I think, yes, we need to talk about it, but I think giving them the experience, and a lot of us have done that, really helps them to understand it.
Thanks. And I was in the group with Ken, and Ken has presented this at the Columbia University program, right? And Mary Jo has had a table at a conference, and that was successful for both of them. So we had some conversation about doing a table at the Midwest conference. And in terms of actual providing the experience, I've done a presentation for a chapter where it's like a mini experience, but for my mentor coaching alumni, I did an actual coaching supervision group, complimentary sample session for an hour and a half where they signed the contract. This is the confidentiality. This is what we're entering into. And then a high percentage of those who were willing to take it that far signed up for the coaching supervision group.
Great.
And Theodora was talking about internal coaching and the need for it there. And I think that's another great market.
Yeah, I would agree about the internal coaching that in terms of getting a one-to-many sales pitch, if you could sell this to someone who runs an internal coaching program, you might end up with a lot more clients than the one-on-one marketing that takes a lot longer to build a client base. So it is an ongoing challenge to get HR departments to set aside money for external supervisors. But eventually they'll see the value of that and begin to fund it, in my opinion. Any other thoughts from the breakout sessions that came up?
I just typed it in the chat. Oh, I'll put myself on. I'm taking off my video because I know my bandwidth is not great today. When I started in the UK, Europe, I used to do lots of sessions with coaches, like where coaches came together, like the London Coaches Group, etc. And I took them through an experiential. So I'm willing to, and I use that over and over again. And I use it face to face, I use it on the telephone. So I'm happy to share that. I think it's having them have an experience of what supervision is like versus what coaching's like is the most important thing for me, so they can contextualize it in their heads.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was also part of that group, and I've done a whole presentation to an ICF chapter just on coaching supervision with a demo that seemed to go over quite well. And in a subsequent ICF chapter meetings, whenever people discuss coaching issues, I always bring up the point that that would be great to bring to supervision. I also point out that EMCC requires 1 hour supervision for every 30 hours of coaching in Europe. So that seems to also get people's attention in terms of interest in terms of growing their profession. And Guy also mentioned in our group that he started a meetup group as a way of extending that a promotion, if you will, or marketing, which we thought was innovative. The price point seems to be in line here in North America. And to your point, yeah, referrals by word of mouth and knowledge of who I am and who the other coaches are seems to be the big draw too.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any last thoughts that haven't been heard yet?
I want to say, Terry, just briefly, it's about helping and supporting each other to make supervision a better position in the market. We cannot do it alone. We need to do it together here. So I think that maybe keep attending your mastermind groups, or getting help and support from each other, collaborating with each other in different projects and different ways. But I do believe for coaching supervision to develop and to be more awareness and to be more people getting supervision, we all need to be supporting and helping each other and finding ways together to do this. So we cannot do this alone. So I want to just reinforce that.
Excellent. Yeah, just a segue, if you're not yet signed up for the Coaching Supervision Mastermind group and you'd like to be able to continue to support that collaborative effort, just email me. I'm going to share my address here on the screen with the last slide today for each of you to have that in case you would like to sign up. And you can see it's just terry@terryhidebrandt.com. And we'd love to have you at a future meeting. We also do send out video recordings, so if you can't make a live session, if you're on the list, you can receive that Zoom recording. So today's been a great opportunity to share some data with you and to hear I think some innovative ways to talk about supervision. And I think like coaching, it will take a while for this supervision process to take hold. Coaching didn't become a phenomenon overnight, and I don't think supervision in the Americas will either. We have some groundbreaking work that we have to do to continue to build awareness and to help people see the value of it. So I look forward to continuing that journey with all of you. So that's the end of my presentation today, Lily, if you'd like to have any announcements for the group.
Great. That was great, Terry. Thanks so much. I know that the momentum is gathering from the time that Damien and I did the first group, CSA group here in North America, I think 5 or 6 years ago. People are now calling and emailing looking for supervisors. So the word is getting out there. I think that we will probably reach a tipping point in the next year or two. Okay, so announcements. November 18th is our next call. Case, he's on the call here, is doing a presentation on ethics in coaching supervision. So that's coming up, so mark your calendars. Our coaching supervision conference in Mexico City, November 7th and 8th. We've now secured Peter Hawkins and Pam McLean as our keynotes, and we are currently sifting through all the great presentation submissions that we received. And following that conference, the very next 2 days, May 9th and 10th, we're running a 2-day transactional analysis workshop. Karen Pratt from South Africa will be running that as well, so that'll be part of the larger package. Any questions, thoughts, comments before we sign off?
I want to say I just came back from Mexico. I was there last weekend and I went to see the hotel, and it's a really nice place. And Mexico City is a beautiful city, so there is a lot to do there. And also after that, we are waiting for Peter Hawkins to confirm if he's going to be doing a team coaching program. This is not related to us, but that's a possibility for people interested in team coaching. It's a 3-day program, and probably that will be after the transactional analysis program. It will be a little bit long, 2 days of conference, 2 days of transactional analysis, and 3 days of team coaching, but that's a possibility for people who may be interested. And also, with Lily, we are putting together a program on group coaching supervision for certified supervisors to go to the next level, and we're starting next month. If anybody's interested, please let us know, and we can send you the information. I think graduates from our programs know about it, but people who are not part of them, the program may not know about it. So if anybody who wants to know more about it, let us know. We're starting next month. And for the people who are coming to Prague, let me know so I can add you to a list. So when we get there together, we can do some activities. I'm going to have a booth, and I'm going to be providing invitation to people to try coaching supervision. So this is what I'm going to be doing there. So I asked graduates from the program to volunteer to do free samples of what coaching supervision is. But if anybody who is here today who is not part of the program is interested, please let me know, and I can add your name to the list of people who are going to be offering a free experience of coaching supervision. So people can learn about it, and then it's a possibility to get a new client. Okay, that will be the result of that. I don't know, Lily, if we have anything else?
No, last chance to say a last comment, anybody? We've got 2 minutes.
I have a question about whether people are continuing to analyze the data.
Oh, from the study?
Yeah.
Well, we are continuing to refine the report, and then it will be coming out shortly, and we'll be launching a new website that everyone will have access to. So, that's where we are on the analysis of the research.
There was a question, Terry, before that people were asking about how much people were paying for group supervision. And the question, for example, is $750 was for the whole process, probably not for one session, I imagine.
Well, the way we asked it was per session, so they may have misanswered the question. Yeah. But on a questionnaire, that's hard to validate, though, right? Since it was but it could be $750 per session is unlikely, yeah, unless it was an all-day program or something. Yeah.
And something like that could affect things like the average, right?
Yeah, there's always some, that's a problem with data, right? You don't know if it's accurate or not, so that's a challenge.
So Terry, I want to recognize you and Jeff, both of you who have taken the initiative to the Mastermind group as a way to support everybody here to develop awareness and build our business as a coach supervisor. So thank you for all of your time and effort, both of you, for leading this.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
Thank you, Damian.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great month, and we'll see you in November.
See you in Prague.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.